Hey, what's up guys? In this video we're going to be going over Live's EQs and frequency-based devices. So instead of going through each of these devices one by one, each of these effects, I'm going to break them down into groups and show you the similarities, and you'll realize how things work, and it'll be really fun. And the first one is EQs and filters. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at spectrum so we can see what the spectrum of music really is. Music goes from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, and that means that if you have a frequency of 20 hertz, that's 20 cycles per second, and that'd be a low bass. So what I'm going to show you is what white noise looks like. So why do we use white noise? Well, because it's a flat frequency response. It's all frequencies as opposed to, say, a sine wave. We could see this is a low kind of fundamental here, right? And as we move up, the fundamental moves up in pitch. The fundamental has more cycles per second. That's roughly how it works, right? So white noise is, oops, I messed that up. There we go. Don't worry about what the operator is doing. White noise is all frequencies at once, so no matter what key you press, it's all the same. It's all frequencies at once. All right, we got that out of the way. So we're going to be using our very first EQ, which is a filter. So what this is it cuts off high frequencies, low frequencies, high and low, a band, and it rejects a certain frequency. So it's more of like, whatever. So we have our cutoff point. There's two controls. Don't worry about anything else going on. We're going to go into advanced stuff later, but there's two controls here. This is our cutoff and our resonance, or Q, right? So an EQ has a cutoff point, and you can select the hertz, the area that you want to cut off, and we can see that and hear that in our spectrum. Right? We see it being cut off, right? This is a very kind of gentle EQ, or a gentle filter. We're going to get into more intense ones later. But we can see how it like attenuates the top end, but it lets the low end go through. This is called a low pass filter because it looks like that. Low pass filter, hooray. We have other options here. We have a high pass filter, which does the opposite. It only lets the high frequencies through. Right? So you might recognize that as like a white noise filter sweep you hear in tech house and stuff like that. Band pass. Now this is a high, okay, rudimentary, I'm going to explain this. It's a high and a low pass put together. Right? There's that. And this is a band pass. This is a notch, like a, it's in there, and this creates like a phasing kind of effect. Right? And that is the first EQ you will ever use. Another thing down here is the cutoff point, or the resonance. This is the resonance. Q is resonance. So if we have a cutoff point here, and we want to boost the resonance, we boost the frequency at the cutoff point, and we can see a little bit of an increase there. So we can make the cutoff point a little more intense by raising the frequency at that cutoff point. This is generally how EQs work. You can make these with like 2 capacitors and some soldering irons and stuff. And that is your auto filter. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, so say if you have a sound, we'll loop this, we'll drop auto filter onto this track. So we have this. Right, you can change the shape of the sound. We can high pass it, and I want you to experiment with this. You can band pass it. These might be familiar effects to you. It might sound like it's underwater. And then there's this. You can also modulate this. So what this the band reject, or band notch, band, yeah, the notch. This was what they would use for phasing effects. Right, so there's that. that is the auto filter. We're not going to get into anything else until we understand what LFOs and sample and hold and all that fun stuff is, and envelope followers. All right, so we're going to go to something a little bit more complicated, EQ3. So this is technically 3 filters. All right, so this works kind of like a DJ mixer, and keep in mind that the EQ3 it adds a lot of color, and color is actually the next video. So this adds a lot of color. So it's not as clean as, say, the EQ8, but it's like kind of reminiscent of DJ mixers. If you've ever looked at a DJ mixer, low, mid, high, your grandma's hi-fi system, a car stereo, low, mid, high, primitively, that's what this is. So we can completely get rid of the low. We can go to default, we can get rid of the mid. So now it sounds like a lot of stuff has been taken away. Or what we can do is we can actually like boost the bass here. So if you want that kind of bassy color, that's how you do it. You can also turn off the EQs completely. So that would be what you would call a complete kill. This is what the EFX effects units used to do. Someone not just honk their horn. We can also boost the high to give a bit more presence. But we can't adjust the frequency of what we're doing. Well, we can, but that's a different story. So this is our crossover. So how am I explain this? So we have our low and gain, or our low and mid. And it's a little bit too flubby. So the crossover between the low and mid is way too low, right? We can kind of give the low a bit more power, shift it over in frequency. So what does it sound like? That kind of sounds like a filter. Kind of hard to understand, but we're going to get to some more fun stuff. EQ3, I rarely use it, but you can use it if you want. So we're going to have our EQ8 now. So I want to show you. This looks a little bit confusing, but it's the same principle as the filter we were just using. It acts the same way, but it's more of a parametric filter. It's more visual, and you can get in there and do some surgery. So yeah, we'll look at it now. This also has the spectrum built into it, which is pretty cool. Right, we have a high pass. Down here, that looks like a low pass, because it is a low pass. All right, and we have our frequency controls here. And we have our cutoff point. We can go really intense. Right, there's that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you a few more other things. So this is our high pass filter, our low pass filter. So what do we have here? We have a different, okay, well, I'll go high pass. No, low pass. We have a low pass times 4. So what does that mean? Well, it's 4 poles. So what does that mean? Well, that means that it cuts off more aggressively at this cutoff point. So you have something called dB per octave, right? This is very smooth. All right, I believe, yeah, this is, 12 dB. So for every, wait, what? For every octave, there's 12 dB of gain reduction. So that's how it kind of works out here. If we want a more intense one, you can listen to it. Right, so that's a 4-pole. So that's a harsh cut. So that would be like adding more capacitors to the circuit. I'm not really sure how it works in electronics, but it's more of a harder cut. It's more of an intense cut. And that works for both high pass and low pass. And you can switch these around. So you can get, the one thing you have to understand is like not all filters act the same. Some of them are cleaner than others. EQ8 in Ableton 8 sounds way different than the one in 9. It was revamped. Another thing is, I guess, the Fab Filter Pro Q. is a bit more high quality. There are some console emulation EQs that are in some plugins from Waves that add color that are not so linear. They add some like soft kind of distortion or saturation. And yeah, so again, not all EQs are the same, and you'll figure that out. This is like the most difficult to grasp. It takes years, and I'm not even close. But EQing, yes, EQing is just a way to shape the sound to make room for other sounds, to do a mix. So yeah, so that is our low pass and high pass. I'm going to deactivate them. You can activate and deactivate them that way. So this is called a shelf. So what this is, it's not so much of a low pass filter. It kind of is. It's a high pass filter, but it's a shelf, and this is a way to. I'll show you. I'll give you an example. This is what a shelf looks like. Oh, whoops, wrong way. There we go. So this is a shelf. So say if you want to boost the frequencies above a certain point and have it continuous, like linearly across, then you'd use this. And this is a good way for like higher frequency content, for like a pad, or this. Right, it really adds like a sheen that's continuous. And the Q, or the resonance, gives you a dip here below and a dip at the top. So how this works is the reason it does this is because there has to be continuity. If you have a high boost, you have to have a low boost. If you have and that way it just sounds more natural and less metallic. Right, well that's pretty exaggerated, but you get the idea. You can have 8 filters. I'll call them filters. You can have 8 of them, and my favorite one. Well, this is my favorite one. This is my second favorite one. This is a notch filter. So this is just like the thing we're using in EQ8, but obviously a bit more cleaner sounding, and you have a lot more control. You can have a very, very surgical cut. You can see that here. We can full screen it. We can see it in all of its glory, and you can get right in there. And it's really fun. And we're going to be doing some nice mixes a little bit later in these YouTube videos. So that's that one. And this is the one that you'll be using the most. This is like surgical, right? You can boost certain areas here. And the Q doesn't make the Q knob, it doesn't make it like higher. Raising it makes it higher, if that makes any sense. The cutoff point makes it more resonant. So what it does is it makes it more narrow, right? So this is very surgical. And what I like to do, this is just me, I like to give low-end material like kicks a bit of a cut around here. Right, and that's that. You can have, 8 of these, and it's really fun. You can do a combination of any of them. You can high pass, low pass. You can even, if you want, you can add another EQ, and that's all well and good. And so in the next kind of, I'm not going to say anything yet, but this is your introduction to EQ and filtering. Give it a practice and move these around and get kind of used to it. Adaptive Q could work well for you, but you can have it on or off. Understand what the poles do. Especially when we get into synthesis, there's different kinds of filters in synthesis, and they all have different poles, and they all kind of add a character. What else? Oh yeah, you can see what's going on here. Now this is a good way to figure stuff out. When you click on one of these guys, you will hear that frequency isolated. So you can pinpoint a sound and be like, oh, that sounds a little bit too, wibbly wobbly. I'll give you a better example. I dropped this guy in here. I might as well use him. Right, so we have that. And we can see this is the bass area. Right, we see the bass going along. This analyzer is post EQ. So you can see what's going on while you're EQing it. right? So if we want to filter that even more, so if you want to add a bit more bass, you can add this little bit right here. You can add, so this line is just kind of pushes things up. It's really, really fun. Right? So say if that mid-range clap, you can listen to it. Mid-range clap, it just doesn't sound natural. Move this around. There we go. So we can enhance that clap. We can take away a bit of the bass to make it sound a little less flubby. Right, so I want that, and then let's see what I can do is I can add another one. Narrow the strip here, and this will be, I'm gonna try to look for the hi-hat, and let's check that out. You can turn it on and off and see what's going on. There's another kind of section. This is more of a console section. Well, of course, if you zoom in, you get different controls down here. This could be a bit confusing, but it's great for like the end refine mix down stage. All right, this video's been 6 minutes long. I hope I didn't talk too much, but we're going to be back for a bit more more advanced EQing and filtering a bit later with some interesting examples after we get some other stuff out of the way. All right, take care and have a good one.